Our next speaker is making waves, defending women's single-sex spaces, advocating for equality and fairness, and standing up for women's safety, privacy, and equal opportunities. Many know her for bravely speaking up when she tied UPenn's Leah Thomas, a biological male swimmer on the women's swimming team, at the 2022 NCAA Division I Women's Swimming and Diving Championships. Since then, Riley has become one of the most powerful voices to speak out against men and women's sports, men and women's locker rooms, and the discrimination that she has faced for using her voice to speak against these injustices. In 2023, Riley was invited to speak at San Francisco State University and was ambushed, physically and verbally assaulted by transgender activists, further proving her point that women need sex-protected spaces. Riley is now the director of the Riley Gaines Center at the Leadership Institute. She's the ambassador for Independent Women's Voice and the host of the podcast Gaines for Girls. And if you haven't listened, you gotta listen. Refusing to be silent, she is making real changes to defend women's rights and women's only spaces. So please give a very warm welcome to 12-time NCAA All-American Swimmer and director of the Riley Gaines Center, Riley Gaines.
Thank you. Kelly mentioned in her intro previously that we would hear from the brilliant and the brave. Clearly, we just heard from the brilliant. I will just prep you guys. I use very plain language. That was probably the hardest my brain has worked in a really long time. But really, Dr. Bishop, it's amazing, is what it is. I find myself in rooms like this, actually really nothing like this. The dinners, right, the Reagan Day, different dinners, they're wonderful, but it's filled with politicians who, God bless them, know nothing at all. So to be in this room is amazing. But really, since being here, I've just been overwhelmed with the support, with the encouragement that I have received. Certainly more support than I felt last time I was in San Francisco. Which was my first mistake, coming to San Francisco. But really, I went to San Francisco State University to deliver a message very similar to what I'm talking to you guys about. But I was naive to believe that these students and community members would come with an open mind and the willingness to have their hearts softened, because they did not. They came with pitchforks and fire. And upon delivering my message, protesters, they enter in the back of the room, hundreds of them. They turn off the lights, they rush to the front of the room. That's when I'm attacked. I'm being pushed, I'm being shoved, I'm being punched in the face by these men wearing dresses. Which fortunately for me, their punches really don't hurt that bad. That's my jokes. But nonetheless, these protesters, they ended up holding me for ransom throughout the middle of the night, demanding that if I wanted to make it home to see my family safely again, I had to pay them money for 5 hours in this room. Now you might be wondering, okay, well, where are the police? Guys, it's San Francisco. The police were being held for ransom with me. And so I'm looking at the officers. Pretty sure we're being held against our will. Pretty sure we call that kidnapping. Isn't there something you can do? To which they said, no, there's nothing we can do. We're not allowed to do anything because we're not allowed to be seen as anything other than an ally to that community, or else we'll lose our jobs. The same community on the other side of the door who was calling these officers racist pigs for protecting a white girl like me. Anyways, the dean of students ends up showing up. Again, it's like midnight at this point, middle of the night. Starts negotiating with the students how much I owe each of them to leave, which the price they agreed upon was $10 each, which makes me mad because I think I'm worth more than $10. But anyways, eventually was able to get out of there. But the next day, the vice president of the vice president of student affairs of the university, her name is Dr. Jamila Moore. She sent out a university-wide email to, of course, the entire student body, to professors, to faculty members, everybody. And in this email, she said, "We are so proud of our brave students for handling Riley Gaines in the manner that they did. We know how deeply traumatic her presence is on this campus, and so here are some counseling resources for you guys. Take the day off of school. Just know that we see you, we hear you, we love you, and we stand with you." Nowhere in this email did it condemn violence against women for that matter. Nowhere in this email did it say that we uphold our First Amendment right of our freedom of speech. No, of course not. And then actually the police only just recently got back to me and said that there was no evidence anywhere to charge anyone. Not the individual students, not the university, not the police department for failing at their most basic duty and ensuring my safety, despite what a quick Google search would show them, because there is an ample amount of audio, video, eyewitness testimony to what happened, which shows you really just how corrupt our justice system has become. Not that you needed this story to reinforce that to you. Certainly feel more welcome and supported in this room than I did even testifying before Congress most recently, which it is unfathomable to me that I just turned 24, but at the time, a 23-year-old college graduate, college swimmer at that, has to go to DC to sit in front of Congress, the beating heart of the American Republic, and explain to them that men and women are different. And then to be on the other side of this table and watch as they have these like super confused looks on their faces. But that's what I was there to do, ultimately urging the Biden administration and the Democratic Party to uphold Title IX's original intent, to which clearly they did not listen to my pleas. But this hearing, the ranking member of this subcommittee, Representative Lee, she's a Democrat from Pennsylvania. She's one of those pesky squad members. But she starts to read her opening monologue. And the first words that come out of her mouth, she says, "I can't believe that I'm forced to sit here and listen to her transphobic bigotry." And my heart broke. Really, I didn't even feel mad. I didn't even feel frustrated. I felt entirely demoralized. I felt disheartened. Again, a sitting member of Congress doesn't try to dissuade from my stance with logic or fact or reasoning or common sense or lived experience or science. What happened to follow the science, Dr. Bishop? No, instead resorts to name calling. And so it's my turn to read my testimony. And I finished my testimony, and I didn't even mean to say this last sentence. It just accidentally came out. But I looked at her, and I said, "Representative Lee, if my testimony makes me transphobic, then understand, by your own logic, your opening monologue makes you a misogynist," which sent the hearing into a tailspin. It was as if she had never accurately heard the word misogynist used in a sentence. Of course, her staff comes running over, her counsel comes running over, they're pulling up their phones. I literally think they looked up the definition, because about 60 seconds later, she raises her hand and she says, "I want her words removed from the record on the grounds of engaging in personalities," which Marjorie Taylor Greene was in that hearing, and so she buzzes in and she says, "I would call a man posing as a woman someone who's engaging in personalities." And then it's like the Jerry Springer show. I'm like, oh gosh, what have I done here? People are jumping over tables. And I'll explain my logic in those brief moments, my thought process, and why I said by your own logic. Because understand the stand that I have taken is a stand that is for something. It's not against anything. The stand it's pro-transparency, it's pro-safety, it's pro-privacy, it's pro-maintaining innocence, it's pro-woman is my stance. But why is it? Does this one work? I'm gonna try this one. But why is it that being pro-woman is immediately deemed anti-trans? And okay, if that's the case, then wouldn't being pro-trans inherently be anti-woman? And what do we call someone who's anti-woman? We call them a misogynist. But let it be known, there were no grounds to have my words removed. So congressional record still stands. Someone actually even sent me her Wikipedia page the other day, and at the very bottom of it, it says, as of whatever day, she's a misogynist, which I think is awesome. So I could sit here and explain for hours, or I guess highlight other, comical scenarios that I have been in that are, I guess, seemingly adverse. But again, just to reinforce how grateful I am to be here in this room, where I am definitely the dumbest person. Totally fine by me. Anyways, a little bit about me. I graduated from University of Kentucky in 2022, where I got my degree in human health sciences and health law. I was in dental school after college, set to be an endodontist. That's what I was set to specialize in, which weirdly enough is like root canals. I'd scored the top percentile nationally of the DAT, which is the dental admissions test, of course, the miserable 4-ish hour long test to get into dental school, which, believe it or not, covers biology and chemistry and math and reading and all the things. Scored in the top percentile, could have gone anywhere that I wanted to go. Also in my senior year, I married my really cute 6'4" British husband, who now living in Nashville has like this awesome country British accent. It's the coolest thing ever. It would have been really easy, really safe, really secure for me to essentially ride off into the sunset with the plans that I had made for myself. But I realize now that the quickest way to make God laugh in your face is to make plans for yourself, because he very clearly had different plans for me. A little bit about my swimming. Started swimming when I was 4 years old, graduated when I was 22, so dedicated 18 years of my life to my sport, which I don't have to explain what this looks like to you guys. There's several female athletes in the room, parents of athletes, former athletes. I'm sure some of you are very former athletes. But you, Dr. Bishop. Kidding, but if you felt offended by it, it's probably because you're a very former athlete. But you know the time, you know the hours, you know the dedication, you know the sacrifices that you have to make to compete at and ultimately be successful at the highest level. I was no different. I'll kind of flash forward here. I ended up going to University of Kentucky, which, let me just say, it was never on my bingo card to go to University of Kentucky. I knew I wanted to stay in the SEC. There was no doubt about that, because the SEC is, in fact, the best conference. I know. I said it. It's true. It's true. Dr. Bishop gets it. This is why he's the smartest man in the room and just received an award and you guys didn't. I know, it's like Pac-10, 15, who even knows. But I knew I was going to stay in the SEC. Actually thought I was going to be a Florida Gator. Then I realized orange is ugly and this is weird. And so ended up going to University of Kentucky, which truthfully I thought the only things that came from Kentucky were like meth and Mountain Dew. I was interested in neither of those things, but there could not have been a better place for me. Dealt with COVID at the end of my sophomore year, which I will be the first person to say that being a college athlete, being a college student, I'd argue being a human during the time of COVID was miserable, right, in terms of the contact tracing and the social distancing and the mandatory vaccines and the mask mandates, which how many of you have seen a swimmer in the water wearing a mask? No, but they certainly tried. We essentially waterboarded ourselves every single day. Not enjoyable. But nonetheless, flash forward to my junior year, we were eventually able to come back My junior year, this is when I was voted team captain. This is when University of Kentucky won its first ever SEC title in program history. And I ended up concluding my junior year by placing 7th in the country, which I was proud of this. To be top 8, you're an All-American, it's a pretty high honor. It wasn't my best time, so I knew I was capable of more. And so it was right then and there my junior year that I placed 7th in the nation, that I set a goal for my senior year to win a national title, which would of course mean becoming the fastest woman in the country in my respective event. And so, senior year rolls around. I'm just gonna keep alternating. I have swimmer lungs, I can just scream. Senior year rolls around. I'm right on pace to achieve this goal. About midway through my senior season, I was ranked 3rd in the nation in the 200 freestyle, trailing the girl in 2nd, a girl I knew very well, because like in most sports, your top tier athletes know of each other regardless of where you compete, because we've grown up competing against each other, trailing her by a few 100s. She actually went to Cal. Now she has transferred to University of Florida, if that tells you anything. But the swimmer who was leading the nation, by body lengths, might I add, was a swimmer that none of us had ever heard of before. Not me, not my teammates, not my coaches, not the other competitors, not my family, no one. And this is the first time we became aware of a swimmer named Leah Thomas. For all we knew at the time, I mean, keep in mind, we hadn't seen a photo of this person, or else things probably would have been a little more clear. But for all I knew, this was a senior, which is very rare. No one just pops out of thin air their senior year. From UPenn, which is not a school that has ever historically produced that caliber of a swimmer. Leading the nation by body lengths in events ranging from the 100 freestyle, which is a sprint, and all of the freestyle events in between through the mile, which is of course long distance. And for those of you who might not necessarily understand swimming, that's like saying your best, thinking about this in terms of your Olympic runners, that's like saying your best 200-meter runner is your best marathon runner. It doesn't happen. They're two totally different systems, but that's what we were seeing in this person. And so I'm scratching my head. I'm looking up the name Leah Thomas. There's no history of this person until that season. None of it made sense, but I'll tell you, never once did it cross my mind that this could be anything other than a female. Never even crossed my mind. And we continued to stay in the dark until an article came out disclosing that Leah Thomas is actually Will Thomas and swam 3 years on the men's team at UPenn before deciding to switch to the women's team. I went to the same database where I was looking up the name Leah Thomas and looked up the name Will Thomas. And to literally no one's surprise, he was, I'll be nice, mediocre at best. That's generous. He was less than average when competing against the men. Ranking in the same event the year prior, 554th in the nation in the men's, his rightful category. To again now switching to the women's, and not just #1, I mean total and utter domination of the entire country of women. Upon reading this, I was shocked. Of course I was shocked. But really it was like this sense of relief is how I felt. Like, oh, duh, this makes sense, he's a man. And I thought the NCAA would see it that way. The same way I saw it. Again, my teammates, my coaches, my family, how anyone with any amount of brain activity would probably comprehend this. But lo and behold, the NCAA did not. They saw absolutely nothing wrong with this. And so about 3 weeks before our national championships in March of 2022, they announced that Thomas's participation in the women's category was a non-negotiable, meaning there was nothing that we could do about this. There was no questions we could ask, no concerns that we could raise. We were told we had to accept this with a smile on our face. And so I got to personally witness and really feel the effect that this infringement, or what I would call an injustice, had on myself and my teammates and my competitors. And look, I don't claim to speak for every single girl on that pool deck. Of course not. But I do claim to speak for the overwhelming majority of us, because I Look, I can wholeheartedly attest to the tears that I saw, not just from the moms in the stands watching as their daughters are being obliterated in the sport that they once loved, but the tears from the girls who placed 9th and 17th and missed out on being named an All-American by 1 place. And I can wholeheartedly attest to the extreme discomfort in the locker room when you turn around and there's a 6'4", 22-year-old man, fully naked, fully intact, fully exposing himself inches away from where you were simultaneously fully undressed. And I can wholeheartedly attest to the whispers, because that's what they were. They were whispers of anger and frustration from those girls who, just like myself, had worked our entire lives to get to this meet, the pinnacle of our sport. Comparatively, it's faster than the Olympics, this meet, because of how deep the U.S. is in our talent. I watched that first day. It was the 500 freestyle, not an event that I typically do, and so I watched on the side of the pool as Thomas swam to a national title. Again, beating out Olympians, beating out American record holders. These aren't scrubs. They're the most impressive and accomplished female swimmers this world has ever seen, and he beat them all by body lengths. He became the first man to win a Division I NCAA women's title. Yeah, trailblazer. But the second day of competition was the 200 free, which is the event that he and I race each other in. And so we get on the blocks, we dive off, we swim 8 laps of freestyle, touch the wall at the end. I look up at the scoreboard, and almost impossibly enough, we had gone the exact same time down to the 100th of a second, meaning we had tied, which one is incredibly embarrassing for a 6'4" man. He couldn't even beat me. But two, you're racing for 1 minute and 40-ish seconds, and not even 1/100th separated us. It's rare. Really what it is what I think it is divine intervention. But we get out of the water, we go behind the awards podium where the NCAA official looks at both Thomas and myself. Again, Thomas towering over me, and he says, "Great job, you two. But you tied, and we only have 1 trophy. So we're gonna give the trophy to Leah. Sorry, Riley, you don't get one." My heart rate was still high, having just competed. My adrenaline was still pumping, and so the first thing that I thought ended up being the first thing that I said. And the first thought that I had was, isn't this everything that Title IX was passed to prevent from happening? What do you mean you're going to give the trophy to the man in the women's 200 free? To which he didn't have an answer. They didn't give him a script of what to say when someone asked why. And so he tries a couple different excuses, but ultimately, and understand, he said this with his face changed. Okay, he looked sad. I could tell he sounded sad. I could tell he didn't even believe what he was about to say. But he looked at me and he said, "Riley, I'm so sorry, but we have been advised as an organization that when photos are being taken, it's crucial that the trophy's in Leah's hands. You can pose with this one, but you have to give yours back. Leah takes the trophy home, you go home empty-handed, end of story." And let me tell you what, that was the moment when for me. That was the moment really when, call it cowering. We knew it was wrong all season, we all did. We knew the unfair competition was wrong, we knew the locker room was wrong, we knew the silencing that we were facing, how our voices were being muzzled entirely by our universities and administrators. We knew all of that was wrong, but it wasn't until this official reduced everything that we had worked our entire lives for, down to a photo op, to validate the feelings and the identity of a man at the expense of our own. That's when I was no longer willing to wait. And I say wait because that's what I was doing. I thought to myself, naively, I realize now, that surely someone who is supposed to be protecting us would protect us. There will be a coach who says something. There will be someone within the NCAA, someone with political power, some other swimmer, someone's dad, quite frankly, would come down there and yank this man out of our locker rooms. That's what I thought. But it was in that moment, standing on the podium, sharing my placement with a man, holding the trophy I know I have to give back, and it hit me. This realization of how in the world could I expect someone to stand up for me if I wasn't even willing to stand up for me? Now, this has to come from us as women, as female athletes. So again, that on top of the locker room aspect, which if I had to see it, you guys at least have to hear about it. I'll keep it PG. We weren't forewarned. There was no prior acknowledgement. There was no way that we could have made other arrangements for ourselves if this was something that we were uncomfortable with. No, the first time we became aware that we would be undressing next to this 6'4" man in all of his glory, or really lack thereof, was when we were inches away from said man, also fully undressed. Put yourself, better yet, put your daughters, your granddaughters in our shoes. It's awkward, it's embarrassing, it's uncomfortable. It was inherent for every girl in that changing space to cover themselves, whether it was with their hands or their towels or their clothes, and to get out of the locker room as quickly as they could. But really, I think the best way to describe how we felt was, it felt like utter betrayal. It was a total violation, and really it was traumatic. And not even traumatic for me necessarily, seeing what we were exposed to or simultaneously being non-consensually exploited. It was traumatic for me to know just how easy it was for those people who created and enforced these policies to totally dismiss our rights to privacy without even a second thought, without even bare minimum forewarning us that this would be the arrangement. And I briefly alluded to the silencing. But again, I believe it's an important piece in understanding how this issue, this debate has transcended, and a lot of these cultural debates have transcended beyond even the subject matter here, and they really have become an infringement on our First Amendment rights and our freedom of speech. I had to go to sensitivity training. Yeah, clearly it didn't work. Where they sat me down, a 21-year-old senior in college at the time. They brought in an outside professional, whatever that means, who sat me down and tried to teach me how to use she, her pronouns. It was like a mock interview setting. I had to answer the interview questions to her standard, or else I had to keep going through the training until they were satisfied. I could go on literally for hours. They told us you'll lose, Riley, you'll never get a job. Your employer's gonna look you up and see that you're a transphobe. And don't you wanna go to dental school? You're never going to get into grad school if you speak up about this. They said you'll lose your friends, you'll lose your scholarship. And oh yeah, Riley, speaking of that scholarship, remember you signed that. And when you signed that, you gave away your rights to speak in your own personal capacity. Remember whose name is across your chest and across your cap, because it's not yours, it's ours. And understand, we have already taken your stance for you. That's what they pulled. That was the gaslighting and what I would call the emotional blackmail that myself and athletes around the country faced. Don't even make me read the letter that Stanford sent to their swimmers, telling them that they were the problem. They needed to seek psychological and counseling services if they didn't feel comfortable seeing male genitalia. Don't even make me read that letter. I could go on about just that piece alone for hours, but for the sake of time, I will conclude that there. But in short, believe it or not, that's the in short version. That's how I got here. But more importantly than how is why. Right? Why is this happening, first and foremost? Which as a Christian myself, I feel entirely confident in answering why this is happening. Because the Bible tells us why this is happening. Paul warns us multiple times throughout Acts and Romans and different places. He tells us that we will reach a point where these spiritual battles intensify, where darkness is seen as light, where bitter is seen as sweet, and where evil is seen as moral. And it's undeniable that that's not where we're at right now. And look, that's not to say that I think Leah Thomas or anyone who identifies as trans is evil. No, I don't think that. But deception is evil, and manipulation is evil, and lying and affirming delusions, that's evil. And who's the father of lies? Who moves through deceit and in darkness? Satan does. So, but from a worldly perspective, why? Again, why do I so fiercely and so passionately want to defend this topic? Make no mistake, this is so much broader than just women's sports, than me not being able to hold the little $5 production trophy or sharing my placement with a man. It's so much bigger than that. The premise of this debate is that we are denying objective truth, biblical truth, but objective truth, biological reality, and the most basic of truths at that. A truth we have never struggled to understand in the nearly 250 years we've been established as a country, but certainly much longer than that, and that truth being man and woman. The sheer essence of humanity. Hate to break it to every single person in this room, never mind every single person on this planet. You're all here from man and woman, and we're being asked to deny that. That's as if we're being asked to deny that the sky is blue. Or really better yet, not only asked to lie about this, but being told to say that 2 + 2 is 5. Which if you read 1984, and don't lie and say you read it out of your own free will, we all had to read it for school, then you know the outcome of this, and it's certainly not pretty. On top of, do you know what they're doing in California? Don't even get me on my soapbox. I'm sure you guys are aware, you see it every day. And of course, not just how it affects women's sports, but how it affects your corporate job, how it has affected academia, the media, the medical profession. Virtually every realm this issue has, it's seemingly overtaken the public square. But in California, in your legislative body, the people that have been elected to represent you and your families and your ideals, they've passed a bill that has taken the word female out of state statute entirely and replaced it with the word person. You think that they've done that with the word male? No. I think for a couple reasons, one of which men wouldn't put up with this for 1 second. Could you imagine a grown man looking you in the eye and being okay with you calling him a sperm producer, which is the equivalent to what they're doing to women? It's cervix haver, uterus owner, menstruator, bleeder, chest feeder, birthing person, birth giver, egg producer. That's what the U.S. Assistant Secretary of Health, Mr. Rachel Levine, calls women. He says egg producers, which I think is so funny because by his own standard, he's not a woman. Not to mention he's obese, which I just think is ironic for an Assistant Secretary of Health. Nonetheless. That's what they're doing in California, erasing women as a whole. I notice now, we've called ourselves biological women. Stop it. I have such a problem with this. I adhered to this for a long time. I thought it was necessary in making the distinction, right? Like I'm a biological being. I'm made of biological matter, and I'm a female, therefore I'm a biological female. Thomas is a biological male. And it hit me one day. Sitting there, I'm like, taking lots of upper level math courses in college, and I'm like, if this was like an algebra equation, wouldn't that word just cancel out? Like, why are we saying that? And it hit me what we were doing. We're playing their game. We're in the palm of their hand. Because understand, when you add that little prerequisite, that prefix of biological, you are subconsciously, which is how they like it to be, unknowing, you are subconsciously admitting that there's an unbiological alternative to being a woman or a man or a male or a female or a girl or a boy. And there's not. God created the only distinction we will ever need when he created man and woman. So all of that to say, even the verbiage of sex reassignment surgery, it sounds harmful enough, I guess, as harmful as the word can be, that phrase can be. But when you say it, you are admitting that you can reassign your sex. And there is nothing that you can do. There's no hormones you can take. There are no cosmetic procedures, no surgeries that you can do that can change who God so perfectly and intentionally and uniquely created you to be in his perfect image. So all of that to say, be mindful of the words that you use, because they do hold power. This is not complex. People are hungry for clear language, and so be able to deliver that to them. We're seeing what's happening in our prison systems here in California, not just here in California, all across the U.S. We've seen male inmates who are convicted of heinous crimes such as child pornography, kidnapping, majority of the time some sort of sexual crime, rape. These are men who are realizing that the quickest way to get into a women's prison, which sounds awesome to a rapist, is to merely say, I'm a woman. And they're doing that. You know how many men have filed to transfer to women's prisons just in recent weeks here in California? Over 1,600. You know how many women have applied to go into men's prisons? One, and she had 3 months left in her sentence. I've talked to correctional officers here in this state. One officer who had just a few years left before he could retire and receive his pension, making $157,000 a year. And it was his task to transfer these male inmates to the female prisons. And he said, I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't do it knowing I have a daughter. He quit his job, leaving all of that behind, which I think is incredibly commendable. That's right here in this state. They're getting in these prisons and they're impregnating women. AIDS are running rampant here in California in the women's facilities. You know what they did on Super Bowl Sunday with your taxpayer dollars? These correctional officers worked overtime to install in these all-women's facilities condom dispensers and dental dams. Now, why would they need condom dispensers in all women's prisons? Yeah, and who's paying for their surgeries? You are. It's your taxpayer dollars who are paying for their surgeries. We've seen so many accounts of what's going on in the sports realm here in the state of California. I've seen boys here in the San Francisco area, one boy by the name of Tate Dragasset, who received a full-ride scholarship to play volleyball at the University of Washington on the women's team, concealed his sex. He lied. I mean, it's fraud is what it is, and he told the school he was a woman, he was a female. The team didn't even know that he was a male upon issuing him this scholarship. He's given over 5 girls concussions just here in San Francisco. I mean, not even just season-ending injuries, career-ending injuries for these girls. That's right here. Again, I don't need to explain this to you guys. All this sounds grim. It sounds chilling. And yeah, from a worldly perspective, sure, it certainly is. But I'm able to do what I do with a smile on my face and an incredibly light heart, because we already know who wins. Actually, correction, we already know who has won the war, which is all the reassurance that I need. And really, I am. I'm more hopeful now than I have been at any point these past 2 years or so. Now 24 states have enacted some sort of fairness in women's sports bill, soon to be 25, with the bill sitting on Governor Sununu's desk in New Hampshire that he has vowed to sign, so we'll see. California not being one of those. But not for lack of trying. You do have Erin Friday. I know she was here. Yeah, she's here. She has been a warrior in this state in collecting signatures and pushing out petitions and drives to get this on a ballot initiative here, to which is certainly an uphill battle, but she really has been relentless in her pursuit. One other thing that I just remembered, it just crossed my mind, because you guys are blessed enough to have Scott Wiener in your state senate. Maybe a few weeks ago, he's on the House floor saying that I'm a bigot and a transphobe and blah, 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 and whatever. And he posted the video to his Twitter account, to which I quoted it, or I responded back and I said, "It's always the people who have never played a competitive sport in their entire lives." To which he responded back with, "Clearly you've never heard of the Gay Kickball League." To which I responded back again and said, "Allow me to repeat myself. It's always the people." So that's who you have working for you. But anyways, there are 8 states now that have done the opposite measure of changing the word woman and actually codified the word woman in law, which I cannot believe we have to do that, define this word, yet we have a sitting Supreme Court justice who can't even answer the question of what is a woman because she says she's not a biologist. Which, guess what? I'm not a veterinarian, but I know what a dog is. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And it's no surprise that this is the same Supreme Court justice who, a few weeks ago in an interview, she said she felt like the First Amendment rights were hamstringing our government. Precisely. That is precisely what our First Amendment rights are supposed to do. That's why we have the Bill of Rights. And if our government can't understand or abide by that, that's precisely why we have the Second Amendment. So anyways, no surprise there. So not only is it necessary that we define this word, I would say that it's urgent that we do such. Title IX has been mentioned many times. We've seen in recent weeks how the Biden administration has hijacked Title IX and its original intent. Enacted 52 years ago, only 37 words in its original implementation, one word being activity, which allowed women the equal opportunity in sports, really what Title IX is most notable for. President Biden has taken this 37-word piece of legislation, rewritten? This is why I'm not the most brilliant person. Rewritten, is that a word? Rewritten it. That's Tennessee talk for you. Which all of you guys are moving to, stop it. Has rewrote Title IX entirely and taken this 37 words, created a new proposal that's 500,000 words. That should tell you everything that you need to know. 1,577 pages from a short, brief paragraph, ultimately equating sex with gender identity, saying these words are the same thing, they're interchangeable, they're synonymous, actually. Lots of work being done to combat this and all of the effects, the harm and severity that this would cause. Another thing that leaves me hopeful, we saw a ruling this week by the Court of Arbitration for Sports, which this ruling is a victory for not just girls and women, but really for humanity. This court has now ruled that Leah Thomas is not allowed to compete in the women's category at the U.S. Olympics. It's so funny to hear such an applause for this because it's equivalent to clapping if a judge ruled that the sun sets in the west. That's what we're doing. But nonetheless, it is certainly a victory. And to be very clear, this is not to say that he cannot compete in the Olympics at all, because he can. Well, he could if he was good enough, but he's not. He could compete in his rightful category, but you and I and everyone, even the people who vote in support of these harmful policies, know that that is not the reality of the situation at hand. All things that leave me feeling very hopeful, but to put a bow on it, because she's standing over there looking like she wants to kick me off, just to put a bow on it, if I can be of any encouragement, one, trust God's calling for you. This is something that, I never felt prepared. I was not prepared, actually, to be very clear. I wasn't prepared to be thrust into this position. Never had to take a government course. Never had to take a history course, which is incredibly concerning now that I'm looking back on it. Like, I'm serious when I say all I knew about our government is that we had 3 branches. I didn't know what they do. I still don't know what they do. I don't even think they know what they do, to be totally honest with you. That was the extent of my knowledge. My public speaking courses in college, my face would turn the color of a tomato. By no means did I feel prepared, but I was wrong in assuming that God calls those who are prepared. That's not what he does. He qualifies those who he calls, and if he brings you to it, he will certainly bring you through it, just as he did with Moses, who led the Israelites out with Aaron and his staff, and just as he did with Joshua, who he promised a victory over the Canaanites, and just as he did with Esther before she was brought before the king. So trust is calling for you. Secondly is don't wait until you're directly impacted to take a stand, which is exactly what I did. I waited. I thought to myself, that not my issue. I have other plans for myself. It won't affect me. Who really cares? It'll be a one-time thing. The NCAA will fix it. Not my problem. And then I was affected. Then I saw the tears. And I realized it is my problem. Even if it didn't affect me, this is my problem. Because I can only hope to have a daughter of my own one day. And that's what we're fighting for. If each and every one of us waited until we were directly impacted, it would be far too late, which I can imagine the state and city that you're living in, you probably already have been impacted in some way, shape, or form. But anyways, it is our duty to stand up, to be bold, to be firm, to be unapologetic in stating the truth. Which I remind myself, we get called all the names, right? We're told we're transphobic, homophobic, racist, white supremacist, domestic terrorist, a fascist, a Nazi. I've been called them all. You know what? The National Organization of Women, now, the leading feminist group, they wore the hats, they fought for Title IX, for sexual liberation and for reproductive rights and all the different things. The leading feminist group for 60-ish years, probably longer than that. They released an article a few weeks ago that said that I was a white supremacist patriarchist. I don't even know what that means. I've been called them all. We're told constantly, well, be compassionate, be inclusive. That's what your governor says, Governor Newsom. Well, I've got a question for you, Governor Newsom, and I'm looking into the camera, hoping this eventually will reach you. Is it compassionate to ask a young girl to undress in front of a man? Is that what compassion is? And is it inclusive to ask us to smile and step aside and allow these men onto our podiums? Is that what inclusion is? No, I don't think so. That sounds like exclusion. And it's exclusive to the very female athletes, the very women who Title IX or the women's sporting category was created to protect and to honor and to celebrate. I know I've extended my time. I could sit here and talk about this for hours. One more thing, again, I think it's relevant because it's just happened here in California. I saw it today. Did you know in LA County, or Silver Lake, I believe is what it is, they just had a big ceremonial procedure where they removed all of the no U-turn signs in the county because they said they were deeply rooted in homophobia. Just wait until they see the no rear entry signs. I was so shocked to see this. A no U-turn sign. Insane behavior that's right here in California. And if you don't believe me, Google it. It sounds so outlandish, so insane, but that is literally what has just happened right here. Which we have, like I said, living in Tennessee, we've seen the exodus. We have seen the political refugees who are running from California. But I applaud those who stay here and those who fight to preserve common sense, to preserve sanity, to preserve California and its beautiful nature, its once great state. Because if you guys don't, then who in the world will? So all that to say, very grateful for this organization. I know that no one wants to make the ask, but I will because I get to take a red-eye flight home tonight. It's amazing that you're here, that you support through moral support and different things, but the work that you're doing, you saw the videos. If you haven't actually seen the documentaries, go watch them. They're incredible. But it does take resources. It takes financial resources. Of course, it takes time, lots of energy expenditure. So if you have the means, I think it is certainly a worthwhile cause. Living in San Francisco, there's probably a few things like a Starbucks drink you could ditch that would probably, 3, 4 of those a week. You could easily drop those. Anyways, I appreciate you guys and thank you. Sorry. Thank you.
Let's have it. That'll be fun.